Hi, I'm Kerry McKittrick, and for my presentation, I will be talking about what is killing bees. So, to be or not to be a dying species. To start with, I want to start with an overview about bees and why they are important. So, basic reasons: they are pollinators. They help the ecosystems go round and help every day. So, as they are our earth pollinators, they help wild plant growth. This means they help with our gardens, they help with our natural forests, they help with flowers and all plants in the world. Another reason why they're important, they are a food source. They make the most popular natural sweetener, honey, that we all love. So they are also important for wild habitats. So, as they are known for their elaborate hives and cone shapes and everything else that goes into making a hive, they also help make homes for other species, such as insects, birds, squirrels, and our other forest living animals. So, with that being said, they are important for biodiversity. They contribute to a complex and interconnected ecosystem, and they help it go round. They make sure that with the pollination with the pollen being pollinated, that these forests and plants are growing. So these are some of the jobs that bees can have. They can be worker bees, drone bees, or queen bees. So a little bit about a worker bee. It is the tiniest bee, and it has a stinger, and they are only females. So they live for about 51 days, and their first job is to work around in the hive and pamper the queen, basically. And then afterwards, they go out into the real world. This is when they pollinate and they collect pollen and bring it to other places. Then there's the drone bee. The drone bees are a little bit bigger than the worker bees, and they are males. They do not have a stinger, and they live anywhere up to 9 months, but on average live for 90 days. And they have these very big eyes that you can see up here, and the purpose for those large eyes are so they can spot queen bees or potential queen bees. Their only real job is to mate. They are the reason why there are so many bees, and that is their only job. This is the queen bee. They are only females, as all queens are, and they have a stinger. Her only job really is to make sure everything goes well, and goes well in the hive, of course, and she also has to lay a lot of eggs. On average, a queen bee lays 1,500 eggs a day. And they live up to about 2 to 3 years, depending, and they live for so long because during the winter and the cold months, when most bees die and can't handle those conditions, she goes underground. She buries herself in leaves or any way to stay warm for the cold months. So, the drops in numbers over the years. So, as you can tell, there are not nearly as many bees that there were when you were a little kid. I noticed a difference because I remember when I was little, I would be on the playground and we would see bees everywhere, and I always was nervous to get stung. So far, so lucky, haven't got stung, knock on wood. So, there has been a decline in hives. There's 60% less hives just since 2008. And over the past few years, there's been a 46% decline in North America and a 17% decline in Europe. So there are a lot of bees on the endangered list, and these are a few: bumblebees, rusty-patched bees, and Hawaiian yellow-faced bees. Bumblebees in North America, you are 50% less likely to see a bumblebee than you were in 1974 or in any really other past year, as there's been such a decline recently. And for rusty-patched bees, they are one of the more endangered bees, as they used to be overpopulated in Ontario, Canada, and now you can't even find them in that area or in much of Canada at all. And for Hawaiian yellow-faced bees, there are 7 types that have just been added to the endangered species list. As they used to be in Hawaii and surrounding islands, you cannot find them. It's very hard to find them now, or any hives of theirs. So, the buzzkill for the bees. We are now going to get into what causes the bees to die. So, first, one of the reasons are called colony collapse disorder. So a reason why colonies collapse are because of parasitic mite syndrome. So these are mites that are known as invasive mites, and they are strictly for bees. They attach to the fur, the skin, the wings, anywhere to grab onto, and they bite the skin just like a flea would or a bed bug. And with this, the bees contract an illness and a disease. And when they go back to the hives, these mites spread around the hives and they infect all of the other bees, no matter what type they are. And this causes bee colonies to collapse and not reform. They can't come back from this most times. Another reason for colony collapse is pesticide poisoning. So as much as farmers or gardeners or people that use pesticides want to save their plants, their vegetables, their fruits, it's not good for the environment or the ecosystem. It's not good for the animals around it. Not only do they affect bees, but they affect other animals that tend to go into the garden and eat for a little snack. So these pesticides rub off, they breathe it in, they eat it when they're collecting the pollen, whatever the case may be, it poisons the bees and it makes them die. And this happens when colonies of bees tend to go to the same areas, whether it be a large farm, a small little garden in someone's backyard, or wherever. So changes to the habitat as well. As the world advances, we tend to cut down trees and parks and places that these bees and other animals live. So it's hard for them to adjust when their home is being taken away. And also climate change has a big effect to bees because of the weather, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So another reason for colony collapse is poor nutrition, and this is because of the changes, the habitat changes, and also the climate change. As there are frequent changes, this creates more challenges for them. The bees can't find what they need. They need to look harder for their food. They need to move somewhere else perhaps and stay together just to try and stay alive, but they only live for so long and they have to settle down quickly after. Another problem is the immune system. Their immune systems aren't built for these pesticides or these parasitic mites. Their potential immune suppressing stress on bees' bodies that are being caused from many things up above, more than one at times, and their bodies can only handle so much. So, buzz off climate change. As I said, we would get into climate change. These animals, as you can see, bees are furry. They prefer the cold. They don't want these hot temperatures that climate change is causing. The biggest decline in bees were when there were record high temperatures in areas that shouldn't be getting as hot as they are. Bees are now being pushed to live in temperatures that they've never had to before, and it's very stressful on their bodies. Scientists have found that areas that become hotter in the past few years have seen the biggest decline in bees, and it's harder to find these colonies. So the shift in the season, the weather cues for animals, when it starts to get warmer, as bears come out of hibernation. It's the same for bees almost. And if the bees come out earlier or later and the plants have already been pollinated or can't be pollinated yet, this can throw off a balance for them, and can be the reason why bees are dropping so quickly, because there's nothing to pollinate, or it's already been pollinated by some other animal or by a human even. So this is an issue for bees. So another reason is that they are greater risk of disease, because parasites and other diseases thrive in warmer weather. So while the temperature is going up, these bees are struggling to survive, and the parasites are thriving and they attack. And this is a big problem. This is increasing the colony collapse for them. So solutions to stopping the bee colonies from collapsing would be small changes. Small changes can go a long way for a lot of things, and for the bees it can help. So staying calm when you see a bee, it sounds ridiculous, but instead of swatting and provoking the bee, they just stay calm. They probably won't bother you, and it'll continue its business, because once a bee feels provoked, it will sting, and once the stinger is out, they die immediately. So staying calm could help a lot. Providing a bee-friendly habitat. So this could mean having a little garden in your backyard, hanging flower plants just for them to pollinate and have a place they can always go. And reducing the pavement. So instead of repaving your driveway or adding more of a driveway, the grass, the dandelions that pop up, those help the bees. So thinking less driveway and more yard could help a lot. And eating bee friendly. So that means eating organically. Instead of eating the foods that say they will last longer, that's because they're covered in pesticides, which isn't good for the bees. And lastly, reading ingredients on pesticides. So anyone just grabs a pesticide that says that'll work from Home Depot, Lowe's, or any other gardening store, and they don't think twice. They just think about what will work best for their garden. So here are some ingredients in pesticides. I wrote good ones and bad ones that you should look for. The good ones are sulfur, garlic, corn gluten, and bad ones are popular Raid that a lot of people use, copper sulfite, ambush. There's a lot more. These are just some of the popular ones, but reading what's on the ingredients could save a bee colony. So here are my resources, and thank you very much.